part B, we've got our folder named. Again, we're going to create a brand new AEP file because I explained in the part A what was going on. In this lesson today, we're going to learn about moving alpha channels. We looked at alpha channels in the last lesson and how you can use them to basically cut holes in media so that you can then start to layer media over top of media, and you can actually see what's underneath that media by cutting these holes with these alpha channels. Alpha channels are also known as masks or mats. And what we're going to do today is we're going to do what's called the traveling mat, which is basically a moving alpha channel. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to start up After Effects because we need to kind of start to set up that piece of software. So again, we'll do a Command-Option-Shift to launch After Effects in what it's called Default Settings Preferences. And again, Command-Option-Shift, if you don't do it right, you're not going to see this prompt. And again, the reason why we're doing this is because as this file, any changes that the previous users make to the interface get saved. And in a situation where we're working with it, if we're using it in a lab situation, then there's multiple users. And of course, when you're learning this piece of software, it's very confusing. So what you don't want to do is open it up and see all kinds of different stuff all the time. So again, once it opens up like it just got installed. I'm going to switch it over into standard workspace because that is the workspace that I really want to be in. And of course, now I'll begin the whole process of establishing my AEP file for this project that I'm starting. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and I'm going to find the right folder to put this into. And there it is, Lesson 9. And then, of course, the right folder to put that into. And of course, Untitled is not a good name, so I'm going to rename this. And I'm going to call this L9 V1. I've noticed a little bug in After Effects. And again, it's crazy subscription issues with After Effects, which are always problematic. Sometimes it changes the name of that file, so you just have to kind of, check and make sure that it actually did. There you go. So it worked this time. Every once in a while, it does kind of give it some erroneous name. So just be aware of that. So I've got this saved now. Next thing I want to do is I want to set up my autosave vault. So I want to go to Preferences, and I want to go down to Autosave. When you start it up in Default Settings Preferences, remember it's going to reset it to automatically save that AEP file every 20 minutes. Well, that is way too long for you to wait for it to autosave. I suggest you set that to 5 minutes, because what that'll do is if you forget to save your AEP file, which inadvertently sometimes you do, After Effects will automatically save a version of that and time and date stamp it. Because if you make a mistake, if you screw something up, you can always go back and open up the last version of the AEP file instead of starting all over again. And I don't know about you, but I would rather not have to start all over again by taking these precautions, okay? So you won't see it yet, but it is going to appear in that folder, in that end project file folder, because it was basically default set to next to project file. So I saved that project file. In about 5 minutes time, you're going to see an autosave vault start to populate. So keep an eye on that. Make sure that's working, because it is, it's integral to getting the software to work for you as opposed to against you. All right, so now we're going to create our link, okay? And again, when we say import, we're not importing anything. All we're doing is we're establishing a link. It's actually kind of a bad thing to call it importing, because importing gives the idea that, oh, I'm actually bringing this file in. No, you're not. You're creating a link to the file, because remember, your RAM is not infinite, and you cannot load media files into your RAM. It's fine with Photoshop and stuff like that, but Photoshop uses one single frame. We're talking here anywhere from 29.97 or 30 frames per second, 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second, up to 60 frames per second. Or for really high speed, it's 120 frames per second. So there's just no way it can run in your RAM. So it has to create these links. So now what I'm going to do is if I double click on that project panel, it's going to open up that import file dialog. And again, I'm pointing to the end project folder because that was the last thing that I set up. So now I need to go to desktop. I need to find my master folder, and there it is. And now what I'm going to do is I am basically going to send it to the assets folder, which contains that file. Now that file is footage, so I don't have to change anything down here because it's basically just a QuickTime movie file. And it tells me there, and it tells me it's high def, and I can get more information about that. But at this point, it's irrelevant. What I need to do now is I need to import that file. Now again, I'm not really importing anything. What I've done is I've created a link. So I'm going to click on that project panel, hit my tilde key, which is a squiggly line key. And there's the file path. That's a link, okay? So everything in this file path has to still be there. Otherwise, this media file is going to go offline. And once it goes offline, your project is basically garbage. So make sure that you're, not, misunderstanding this whole import process. You're not importing anything. You're creating a file path. The file path is a link. And in that link, it's got all the relevant information that's important for this piece of software in order to find those media files. So make sure, again, you're understanding that knowledge. Now, again, every time I make any changes, yeah, that's right. I want to go file, save as. And what I want to do now is I want to call this version 2. You might think it's ridiculous, but honestly, if you get yourself into the habit of doing this, it's going to save you a lot of grief down the road. So it's really important that you manage the workflow according to how After Effects would like you to work. And it really is, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this file and we're going to drag it down here, and it's actually going to create a composition. Now, a composition is basically the heart of any After Effects project. So by taking that file down here, I've now created a composition, and it's just going to basically call that composition the same name as it called the file. So again, it's really, I could change that at any time because that is a composition. And if I go to composition and I go to composition settings, I can go in here and change it to boy master. So, if I'm not really sure, or just call it master, that I know that that's my master composition. And you can see it's taken on all the properties that file has. So it's high def, 2997. There's the actual duration, 3 seconds and 2 frames. So again, I can change the name of that composition because again, if I go and hit that tilde key, notice the composition doesn't have a file path because it's created within inside this piece of software. So there's no external links. So, that's, again, important to understand what things you can change the name of. Not this one, but this composition, yeah, I can change the name of it to whatever I want because it has no file path, okay? So again, that's really, really important for you to understand. So now that I've done that, again, I'm going to go file, save as, and I am going to call this version 3. And these AEP files do not use up a lot of memory. So it really is not, of any detriment to do what I'm doing here. Because in the end, it's basically to help you, work with the After Effects software being your friend as opposed to being your enemy, okay? So on to part C.